Hello, everyone. Welcome to Shelf Space with Kino Lorber, where we talk about all things physical media with Kino Lorber's head of acquisitions, Frank Tarzi. Today, we're joined by two very special guests, Jason Simos and Bill Maynard. They are both writers who have long championed the actor Peter Sellers, including over the years with the Peter Sellers Appreciation Society, and have been archivists and historians of the classic Pink Panther comedies the actor made with director Blake Edwards. Jason, Bill, and Frank will also be answering your audience questions, so thank you to everyone who submitted a question ahead of time. If you would like to submit a question for a future episode, be sure to sign up for our newsletter to get on the email list, and be sure to subscribe to the Kino Lorber YouTube channel. If you have any customer service questions, please submit those at the link in the video description below. Thank you so much for joining us today, Jason and Bill. Hello. We like to start out every episode by asking how you guys know each other, how have you been working together? And this is for all three of you.
Well, as far as I know, they've known each other for a long time, so you guys could go with that. But I remember when we were about to release Shout Factory did a Peter Sellers Pink Panthers box set, and I decided to go. Why not just pick up the other films and also put them out, because that way they'll all be available. So I picked up Curse of the Pink Panther, Inspector Clouseau, and
Son of the Pink Panther.
Son of the Pink Panther. And I think you reached out to me, right?
I did.
Yeah, you reached out to me. We met in the office, and
Yes.
you did a commentary for Son of the Pink Panther. Bill, did you do one for Inspector Clouseau?
I did, yes.
Yes, you did one for Inspector Clouseau, and for Curse of the Pink Panther, I think we were lucky enough to interview Ted Wass, who gave us a great interview. So that's how we met. That was years ago when I put out those three films. But you guys could talk about your own.
Well, those were the three non-Peter Sellers films in the Pink Panther series. And Alicia, thank you for having us all here today on Shelf Space, because we're here happily because Kino Lorber has now gathered all of the 5 original Blake Edwards and Peter Sellers collaborations, the core original Pink Panther movies that they made together before Peter Sellers' untimely passing in 1980. And the Pink Panther Masterpiece Collection, uniting all 5 films, is going to be out on Tuesday, September 8th from Kino Lorber. Tuesday, September 8th is Peter Sellers' birthday.
Oh, that's right. A Virgo king.
Exactly. And he would have been 101.
We missed the centennial by 1. So.
Well, that's a very Peter Sellers twist on things, so I think he would have appreciated that. I think he would have appreciated being 101 also, because he always loved playing older than he was. From an early young age, he was playing doddering old men. But we're getting a little bit off topic here.
I just also want to point out that the box set will be available for pre-order as of the publishing of the premiere of this episode. So whoever is watching now, you can go and pre-order it. That's all. Continue.
No, thank you, Alicia, for that. I was blithely unaware of that. So thank you for letting me know. Bill and I met in 2002, I think it was, Bill. We met.
That sounds right.
Yeah, we met, as I recall, but correct me if I'm wrong, in an online forum devoted to the Pink Panther. Now, again, this is 2002, so online, this was even before YouTube. And we quickly communed, because we both not only loved the Pink Panther film series and Peter Sellers, but we both had a real deep cut knowledge of it. Was that fair to say, Bill?
Yeah, I mean, you reached out to me, which was a shock. And in those days, we weren't doddering old men, as you said. No, yeah, as we are now. But yeah, that was the beginning of it.
Is that how you got into film commentary? Did you get into film commentary together?
I did.
Start to...
Yeah, I got in through the kindness of Jason, Frank, and his counterpart at Shot Factory.
Oh, nice.
I wouldn't have wanted to get into it without Bill. And I had already been doing moderating of Q&As, working as a publicist in the entertainment industry. So for me, it was a logical next step. But at the same time, there's no one person I would rather do commentaries about, no one film personality than Peter Sellers and or Blake Edwards, and there's no group of films that I would rather speak about for hours on end, or in the case of this Shelf Space episode, 1 hour, than the Pink Panther movies.
What was it about the Pink Panther films that, really stood out to you, made you want to start film commentary? What was it about those films in particular?
Frank, you grew up in New York, right?
Mhm.
I'm prefacing that because growing up in New York, the Pink Panther cartoon was on television
Yep, it
regularly.
was on Channel 11. Yeah, it was on Channel 11. And they also had the Inspector and the other characters and to the aardvark, which I also released on. We released the Pink Panther cartoons as a set, and we also released all the spin-offs, Mr. Jaw and all of those things. We put those out on also, and really nice special editions.
There was a whole Pink Panther cartoon universe before.
I used to watch that as a kid.
Right, and they're wonderful, but the Pink Panther movies for a long time were on a break. They were on a hiatus. And then in 1975, while the Pink Panther was still airing on Saturday morning TV network, actually, the series resurrected, reborn, rebirthed with the return of the Pink Panther. And Bill and I have talked about this when he and I, growing up, saw that movie. Well, you can elaborate on it. You say it more poetically than I do, Bill, about seeing that movie.
Yeah, it was an epiphany moment. It was where madness and comedy connected, and it's a very personal sort of thing, I suppose. That that particular sort of what other people would see if you saw The Naked Gun in the '80s. It's just a comedy, very good comedy, but a comedy. The Panthers had something very, very unique from a perspective of chemistry, and it was a bit anarchic. It was a bit of madness, and there's a line in Strikes Again: "Madness does not preclude achievement," that I think summarizes Edwards and Sellers quite well.
What do you think
Yeah,
it
and
was
also,
about that? Oh, go ahead, Frank. Go ahead.
no, go ahead, Alicia, go ahead.
Well, I
I
was
was
just
just
going
going
to
to
ask
mention,
about Edwards and Sellers. What was it about that combination of Peter Sellers and Blake Edwards that made those films work so well, made them so unforgettable?
you
Jason?
could go ahead, Jason.
Okay, thank you. We're speaking of one of the greatest filmmaker star teams in film history. People don't necessarily give them enough of their due because it's just comedy. We're speaking of a pairing that, in the same breath as De Niro and Scorsese, Jimmy Stewart and Alfred Hitchcock,
Jimmy Stewart and Frank Capra, and so on and so on.
Yeah, because it was 1 + 1 = 3. They agreed to work together without ever having met. Peter Sellers was a last-minute replacement for Peter Ustinov on the original Pink Panther, and Blake Edwards knew who he was and said, let's get him, but they never met until Peter Sellers arrived in Rome in the fall of 1962 to begin filming. And as they both said very often in interviews, they instantly hit it off, riding in the car from the airport to the film locations and set. They immediately began vibing, bonding, brainstorming, creating. And for the next 16 or so years, despite some peaks and valleys, this was a formidable creative chemistry that they sparked each other. As a reminder, they made another great movie outside of the Pink Panther movies together called The Party, which is from 1968, which is every bit the equal of these Pink Panther classics.
Yeah, but the thing was that I think it was The Party that there was tension between them after that movie. There was things that Edwards wanted to try cinematically that Peter Sellers wasn't very happy about, and their careers, Blake Edwards in the '60s was like making some incredible films, and Experiment in Terror, some great
He made
Days of Wine
Breakfast
and
at
Roses,
Tiffany's, right?
yeah, Breakfast at Tiffany's, and then he also had. So he made a great comeback in the '80s after the Pink Panther films, but there was a period where both Peter Sellers and Blake Edwards, after they fall out of the party, that their careers were kind of like not going anywhere. So the return of the Pink Panther wasn't just the return of the Pink Panther; it was the return of Blake Edwards and the return of Peter Sellers as major stars. Because there's a reason why Return of the Pink Panther is not controlled by United Artists in America, was because the studio felt like, oh, wait a minute, it's been so many years. They had released Inspector Clouseau, which had not done well. They already had done the two classics, which was Pink Panther and Shot in the Dark. So there was a reason why that film is not under the same umbrella as the other Pink Panther films that came on, because they didn't really believe in it. They didn't think it was going to be, but it was, the ones in the '70s was Pink Panther on steroids. They were like so much more crazy and over the top. And Shot in the Dark kind of started that. There was no doubt. Shot in the Dark kind of like took it to another level when it came to the slapstick and the comedy. But when you watch Return and then you see Strikes Again, which takes it to almost another level of Herbert Lom, incredible performance. And that's another thing that these films, the third person there's also the score with Mancini, but the third person is Herbert Lom. Herbert Lom is such a huge part of these films.
Is
He
that
was
Dreyfus,
so great.
Commissioner Dreyfus?
Yeah, but yes.
I
Yes,
love, yeah, he's so good. It's
yeah.
almost, it reminds me of like Looney Tunes almost, where it's like this obsessive, it's like the hunter chasing, Elmer Fudd chasing, what's his name? Rabbit. What's the
Bugs
rabbit?
Bunny.
Bugs
Bugs
Bunny.
Bunny.
Yeah, but
And he becomes
to a
so
point.
obsessed, but he just keeps
Yeah.
getting away,
But the thing is that I would compare it to Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck, because Daffy Duck hated Bugs Bunny. But in this case, I think Daffy Duck has a point, because Bugs Bunny was not an idiot, but Clouseau was an idiot. So he just could not accept the Clouseau, that Clouseau was getting all this praise and all this other stuff, where he knew he was the better detective, he was the better policeman, and all of that stuff. But yeah, I think Return of the Pink Panther was kind of the return of all the, because if you look at some of the stuff that Blake Edwards did in the early '70s, the Terminal Seed and stuff like that, and Peter Sellers was struggling with his movies in the early '70s. So yeah, The Party was their other really great classic, but at the same time, it also was the film that kind of ended their career and stopped them from working together for a while. So.
I would love to know from all of you, what is it about Peter Sellers that resonates with you more than any other comedic actor? What is it about him?
Total absorption.
Just
Yeah,
disappearing into a character.
Right, to move away from the Panthers for a second, watch Dr. Strangelove.
Oh, absolutely. His talent for playing multiple characters, very, very different characters, is unparalleled.
Yeah, I think Alec Guinness was a hero of his, right?
He was.
Yeah. And in that sense, I think Kind Hearts of Coronets was the kind of thing he would look at and say, well, if Guinness could do it, I could do it. And I think he would do. What I loved about him was that he was all in. Even if the film wasn't great, he was all in. He would like try anything possible. Like even if he does cameos in like Road to Hong Kong, he's really funny in that moment. Like just stands out. So he's without a doubt the top 5 greatest comedians of all time. Without a doubt. I mean, I don't want to start ranking who's but he is one of the greatest all-time comedians. But he was also a great actor. I mean, people forget how this great performance in Being There, as great performance in Lolita and other films. And yeah, we were talking a little earlier. Unfortunately, he also made some, films that were below his talent level. So.
Well, you find that with the greatest actors and actresses in film
Mhm.
history. You'd be hard pressed to find one who doesn't have at least one film or a couple of films where they say, "Ooh, I shouldn't have done that." The phrase that didn't come up just now, which I will use for Peter, was "commit to the bit." He would do that macro, he would do that micro. If you watch interviews with him, which there are many available on YouTube, you'll see him being very invested in the interview, but then at a moment's notice, to illustrate a point, to tell a story, to act out an anecdote, he will go into another persona completely, accent, vocal and facial carriage, and it's just wonderful to see always. And in terms of what Frank was saying before about idolizing Guinness, they had starred together with Herbert Lom in the classic The Lady Killers in
Yeah, it's
1955.
amazing.
And already by then, Sellers was, because Kind Hearts and Cornets, to your point, had come out a few years before that, about 6 years before that, Sellers loved doing multiple roles. He loved playing multiple characters. He loved playing characters who are themselves pretending to be somebody else, which of course comes up repeatedly in the Pink Panther movies with Clouseau's not great disguises that he's frantically trying to make work, even as maybe they're physically falling apart on him, or maybe the illusion is
Something is melting. Or
something is melting, yeah. And it's just always, as Bill said, the absorption. To this day, when I look at Peter as Clouseau, and I've spent thousands of hours watching him in the role, I still have difficulty seeing Peter, because I know who Peter is based on the interviews and other things, his appearance, the way he really spoke. But I look at him and stare at him, and he is the character. He is Jacques Clouseau.
Yeah, it's that's why I think Alan Arkin had such a hard time, as great as actor as he was, to recreate that. It just there's
Big
something
shoes to fill.
Yeah, and then you also got to look at you thought Disguises. Like the greatest sequence with him in Disguise is in Strikes Again, when he goes in as a dentist, and that scene is so incredible because at a certain point Herbert Lom realizes this is Clouseau, but he's so high on laughing gas that he cannot say it. So I told a story a long time ago that I took some friends from Forum to go see Pink Panther Strikes Again, and they were not into it. They were just like, it really, really hurt me that these people didn't have the sense of humor for this movie.
That's a shame.
But one of the greatest things that I experienced was like a 9-year-old, 10-year-old kid behind me, where his mom was just laughing to a point where you could see it was hurting this kid. And I was like, that made it worth me going to the screening, because the shit that I
You're
took
like,
with
I'm
me.
gonna go hang out with this 9-year-old kid now. You guys, see you guys later.
They just there's if you can't laugh in Strikes Again, I don't know. I think you don't have a sense of humor, because I mean, just like just from the beginning, from the insane asylum into everything else, and all the great cameos, and all of a sudden it becomes a James Bondish type of a film, and it's really crazy.
Yeah, to me, I think it's Peter Sellers' unique knack for both, like, it's interesting you say micro and macro, because he's so good at slapstick and all the big motions, but he just remains so subtle on his face, almost deadpan, like his face hardly changes. And that combination, that dichotomy, I think is really very unique to him and his style of comedy. And I've always really enjoyed that. Do you guys remember
Yeah,
what the very first Peter Sellers movie you ever saw was, and what your reaction was? Was it Pink Panther? One of the Pink Panthers?
Yeah.
I think for me it was one of the Pink Panthers. Yeah, I think it may have been Return of the Pink Panther, because I was really young. I think when Return came out,
It was May 1975.
right, so I was, I think, 7.
You know exactly
But I
the
think I saw it a couple few years later. I mean, no, it was Revenge. It was Revenge. Revenge was the first one I saw. I went with my dad and my brother.
July 1978.
And when I saw Revenge, I didn't even know it was part of a series or anything like that. And then I was like 9 years old or whatever. And it was, I just couldn't believe how funny that movie was. And then later on, through television, I saw there was Strikes Again, and then I was like, oh wow, there's a whole series of this. And then, like most movie geeks, we had the Molten Guide, so we started looking by name, and it was like that's when I realized he had done a whole series of these films, which this is our beautiful standalone releases, but the box set will be coming out soon.
So
Bill, how
Jason
about
and Bill.
you?
Oh, Bill, yeah, Bill. What
Oh,
was your
it
first?
was Strikes Again.
I mean,
So
to your point about being 9 years old yourself and watching that, and to your earlier point about the kid watching the revival showing at Film Forum, I think one of the great qualities that Peter had, Maxine Ventham, who co-founded the Peter Sellers Appreciation Society, she said it's something about his eyes. There was a great empathy in his eyes. There was a glint of madness in his eyes also. But, and to your point, Alicia, when you're watching him with the subtle reactions, including in his eyes, like Clouseau is in these outrageous situations that he's got himself into, and you see him like thinking, oh God, did anyone see that? What am I going to do? How do I get out of this? Are my pants still on? Did anyone see that? Is she looking at me? All of those things at once. And you just empathize, because the great thing about Clouseau, and Blake Edwards said some of it came from him in addition to Sellers, because Blake Edwards says he and his family have the Clouseau gene of clumsiness. But with Peter, what you had with the character was the empathy, where we've all had that. We all have the days we get up in the morning, we're doing our morning stuff in the bathroom, and we reach for something and it clatters onto the floor, and then we bump our head while reaching. We
Literally
go
happened to
through.
me today. I bumped my head earlier today. Yeah.
Yes, I see you have received the bump.
A boom.
Bimp. Yes, that is what I said. But it's so relatable. And again, it's what I was saying before. You might not find yourself in a situation where your disguise is melting, hopefully not. But then the reaction of, I got a cover for this. Nobody saw that.
But it's also the confidence. That's what I compare him to Daffy Duck. He was a klutz. He was not smart or anything, but he had this confidence that I am the greatest detective of all time. He walked around when he goes to the parallel bars. Oh yeah, as a kid, he does that. It's just that he thought like the whole thing that he's setting up these fights with Kato, where he thinks that it's just the confidence he had. And the greatest comedy actors are the deadpan ones, the ones that don't like really. That whole thing with Buster Keaton was like Buster Keaton. You never, there was never like I don't know if I ever saw him smile in the movie. I mean, you look at most of the Buster Keaton films. I don't think there was any moment. And Peter Sellers, the Clouseau character, is kind of similar to that, where he's very deadpan, very
Totally.
but he's also very confident. There's like a confidence in him. Not earned.
Hubris.
Yeah, it's not earned confidence, but he's very confident.
No, and it is a hubris too, like you said, Alicia, because that's Blake Edwards knew he and Peter Sellers knew like how to push it a little to the left, a little to the right, 10 degrees this way. And it again, that's something we all go through, where we like to, we come on like we know what we're doing, and then, something happens, we have to cover or pretend it didn't happen. So very, very universal, very relatable, and especially for children who empathize. Like, you can laugh and say, oh, that's so silly what's happening to him, but the kids are also delighted because it's relieving them of some of their anxieties, seeing it play
Yeah.
out on such a large scale level. And I think that's one reason these movies are always going to delight children and teens, for that matter, because and of course adults also. It's so relatable.
Yeah,
I think that's a good point.
my parents, my mom's not a big comedy fan, but she loves Peter Sellers. Like, she watches these Pink Panther movies are like her favorites. There was if you look at his accent, his French accent, and the Pink Panther is very slight. It gets a little deeper and shot in the dark. By Revenge, you don't really can't understand what he's saying, because they pushed it further and further to a point where, because if you really watch Pink Panther, he has like a very slight French accent, like on purpose. And then he got they were like, let's push this as far as we can.
I feel like
without
they really like there was an evolution of sorts. Like he was almost not really in the Pink Panther, the first one, that much, and then his character becomes more and more involved. I actually have a random question about Kato, the character of Kato. Was he
Burt
such
Kwok.
a fan favorite in Shot in the Dark that they wrote him in to subsequent films and then made him almost like one of the main lead characters in, I think it was, which one was it? Revenge of Pink Panther? Was that
Hmm.
that was the case?
Well, he was in every
Bill
one
is nodding.
after
Yes.
he was after Shot in the Dark. He was in every every other Pink Panther film. He always, he had and the fight scenes, or like some of them, the fight scene in
The
Strikes
karate
Again is
chops.
one.
Some
Yeah,
of my
the fight
favorite.
scene in Strikes Again when he brings up the nunchucks and stuff is one of the greatest fight scenes. And so no, I think he was in all the movies after. I always wondered because I saw Manchurian Candidate and his
Yeah.
servant was played by Henry Silva. It was named Kato. I was wondering did they actually base it on that because. But I don't know. I don't know because 62, right? That was
Yeah, that was 62. It's possible, except that in A Shot in the Dark, Kato is spelled with a K in the credits, right, Bill?
Correct.
Yeah, but later on, as with many things in the series, which they just randomly tweaked or changed,
I noticed that. Charles
yeah,
Lighton
Kato,
too, yeah.
it became a C.
it became a C, yeah.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah,
I thought it was always.
was
I
a
always thought it was
C.
Kato with K.
Well, I would just like to
But
commend Blake Edwards for his improvement on Asian representation in film after Breakfast at Tiffany's. This is a vast improvement. So just wanted to say that.
Yeah, that one is hard to defend.
that's gracious of you to say, Alicia. And it's worth noting that Burt Kwok, a few years before he passed, received an Order of the British Empire, an OBE,
Oh,
from the royal family, recognizing his wonderful five-decade career in film.
Yeah, he
that's
had an incredible
wonderful.
career. If you look at all his little supporting roles in different other movies besides the Pink Panther films, he was he like those characters, Dreyfus, Kato, all of them, they were a big part of this whole incredible collection of films, so
It was a rep
If you
company. It was Troop. Bill has spent a lot of time identifying who Blake Edwards' core collaborators were from movie to movie, not just the Panther movies, but in general. Blake Edwards was a fiercely loyal creator who loved to surround himself with a creative storytelling family, people behind the scenes, people in front of the scenes. You mentioned Experiment in Terror before, and that came about in part because he and Lee Remick had done the classic Days of Wine and Roses with Jack Lemmon, who Blake Edwards made several films with. And Blake Edwards was the kind of person who'd say, like, we're really great together. Let's do something else immediately. And he would mean it. And that's why he worked with so many people in front and behind the camera across decades. And the Panther unit, especially, being as these movies were shot over in the UK, it really was a family. It was the same crew members would come back, and the same studios they'd film at with the runners and whatnot.
Yeah, similar to John Ford with his group of actors and crew members that he regularly worked with. Every time he went did a Western, it was the same people he worked with. Same, and even the Native Americans, they all loved him because every time he showed up to shoot a film, they all got great jobs. They ate really well for months, and so they were very happy whenever John Ford and the crew would show up to shoot another Western.
Jason and Bill, can you guys talk to me a little bit about your research process for these films? I know that you've written essays, and what was that research process like? And did you learn anything new or surprising about Peter Sellers during your research?
Sure. I always learn
ahead.
new things based on what Bill comes up with. That's the truth.
It's some of it's guesswork that sometimes you end up correct, and nothing was nicer than hearing from people like Dr. Herb Taney, Edward's physician, who turns up in all of the films starting in Return and is in almost all of Edward's films, starting with Darling Lily. Usually you can find it in the trailer of the films, because he found it fun to put his physician in. Hearing from him saying much the same way Jason did, I've noticed you're writing online, I'm reaching out to you. Edward's daughter Jennifer, who is actress, writer, was in a lot of her father's work. She's the son of the Pink Panther. The same thing. It's very gratifying when you hear from someone like that, who, by the way, Frank, I should mention, she would love to do part of future commentaries or a featurette. So if you would like that to be something you consider for the future, happy to connect on that.
That would be great, yeah. Especially if we end up picking up some Edward titles and
Yeah. And to me, that's one of the nice things is when you're researching, and you research many things. It's not just we have many false gods, not just Panthers, and it's an unending series of connections. Usually it's creatively sparked, but you'll see where an individual turns up or something recurs with the story. But I did actually want to do a sidestep back to something we talked about earlier about Clouseau. One of the things I find very unique that Sellers and Edwards were able to do is they could make Clouseau unlikable, yet you still liked him. So he will say things that today would be labeled politically incorrect. They were still in the 70s seen as, that's terrible. Look at what he said to the woman in Revenge, Valerie Leon, or what he says to his belittling of Burt Kwok. He says terrible things, yet he doesn't seem like a villain for it, because everything he does is incompetent. And so it was a great way of sort of sending up attitudes before anyone had a phrase like political correctness. Clouseau is incorrect, and he's incorrect in so many multiple ways. Yet because there's a recognition of him, the whole that felt good when he falls, you forgive him so much. And any other character, if it was Dreyfus who said these awful things, he would be horrible. You would be mortified by it. But with Clouseau, you forgive it. And it was a very interesting approach to comedy.
That's a good point, because he's so bumbling. You can't help but you kind of
You forgive him.
feel bad. Yeah, you forgive him. Exactly. Yeah.
because there, as I said, there's that confidence in him. There's also a childlike
Very true.
thing about him that he's very. The scene in Shot in the Dark when they're all fighting behind him, he just looks at the camera like, "Please, like, can someone help me?" It's like
an
those are
Oliver Hardy.
moments, and even little subtle things when he calls and strikes again. He calls the commissioner. He says, "Hello, commissioner. How are the little commissioners?" It's like it's the kind of line that you just like, what did he just say? You just have to also rewind the disc back to say he just said that. He does. There are things that he says he shouldn't say, and there's things he does, especially with poor Cato. There's a lot of things that happens, but also Cato gets revenge on him and Revenge of the Pink Panther by turning his apartment into a brothel. So, but there's also these movies just make me laugh. So for me, it's like every time I think about a scene, it makes me laugh. So they're really great. The Party has problems. I mean, that's a film that people have told me, "Are you going to restore that one?" I love The Party; it's great. But the fact that he has darker skin in the film, that's like a big problem today. I did release it already on Blu-ray, and I think it's a great film. I think his performance is he plays such a sweet person, a dumb but very sweet person. So I think that one I will have a harder time probably. Listen, I'm not scared of releasing controversial stuff. I've done it in the past, and I'll continue doing it. And if it was a huge seller for me, I probably would have done it. So
Even during their lifetimes, the surprising thing is that The Party was not a financial success, even though it was the team behind the successful Pink Panther movies. Even when it came out in 1968, it wasn't a success. And the two of them, for years afterwards, would say, I'm really very proud of that. I wish more people had seen it. They each would say this separately. And It did develop something of a cult following and reappraisal later, but of course, it's also developed. People are concerned and sensitive about some of what's in the movie, as you said.
Yeah, I mean, there's things that actors in those days could do, which we know they're no longer going to be able to do. Him playing Fu Manchu or stuff like that. He had done.
Well, the thing with Peter is that he loved to challenge himself.
Yeah.
He would play different genders. He would play different ethnicities. As I said before, he would certainly play different ages.
Right.
There was nothing he wouldn't try. As I said, also, especially with the multiple roles. So he was always looking to really push
Right.
the
There was
envelope.
no maliciousness in that. What they were doing at that time was like he just wanted to expand his horizons. I'm like, I could do this and I could do that.
Yeah.
I've never played an old lady before, so let me play an old
Yeah.
lady.
He
so-
probably is. He's probably more convincing than most old ladies, honestly.
Yeah.
So let
Yeah, I
him
mean,
do it.
I would say one of the greatest old ladies performances I've ever seen by a man is Dame DeLuise in Haunted Honeymoon, because you completely forget that you're watching that film. You forget that he's a man dressed up as a woman, but because he looked very much the part with the costume and everything.
I don't think Dom DeLuise ever got to work with Peter Sellers. Maybe they were on a Dean Martin show together. I'm not sure.
Yeah, Dame DeLuise was a incredibly funny guy, and when he was given, he's a person that should have had a much better career than he did.
Well, he did all right.
He did all right. Yeah, he did all right.
Well, besides the Pink Panther films, what are some of your other favorite Peter Sellers films? For me, I love The Mouse That Roared, and of course, Dr. Strangelove. Those were the two movies that I first saw Peter Sellers in, and I fell in love with him.
There's so many. Do you guys want to start?
I'll name some that I really like. I mean, I like The Party a lot for that. Of course, the Kubrick films, Being There, I think is really an incredible performance by him. As far as as other comedies, What's New Pussycat is really funny. I think After the Fox, he gives a really funny performance in that. The Mouse That Roared. Smaller roles like in the wrong box with and of course Lady Killers, which he has a smaller role, but him and Herbert Lom were great in that. And Herbert Lom, I think, at that time was a bigger star than Peter Sellers was. Yeah. So those would be some of the ones. I'm probably forgetting ones, but those are the ones that I would probably list as my other favorites of Peter Sellers'.
I mean, The Wrong Box is one of the best movies he ever did, but he's in that for less than 10 minutes. It's deliberate. He's a guest star in it. It's a fun kind of, I mean, the movie is already firing on all cylinders,
Yeah.
and then he comes in and really brings down the house. But they know that just a little of him and that goes a long way. But that is one of the funniest movies I think I've ever seen.
It's a great film.
But again, it's not dependent on him, nor does he overdo it. He's like a ninja, or I should perhaps use a different phrase. He's like a stealth bomber. I mean, that's not good either. He's he's a specialist who comes in and really just precision nails it and then gets out, and the movie continues on its merry way.
The film has like an incredible cast, of legendary actors, Ralph Richardson and stuff like that, Michael Caine and so on.
He's a scene stealer, no matter what, no matter how big or small his role is, he's going to steal the scene.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing on The Lady Killers. Herbert Lom was very encouraging to him because he sought out Herbert Lom's advice very respectfully and said, "Do you think I'm going to have a career in movies? Do you think I'm going to be okay?" And Herbert Lom was very encouraging to him and said, "I think you're going to be fine." And he never forgot that. And they remained not just on-screen collaborators, but they were friendly off-screen as well. I know this will be a revelation to people who think of them as Clouseau and Dreyfus, but they did get along off-screen. They didn't vacation together with their families, but they were friendly. And when Herbert Lom, who is Czech-born, when he faced a citizenship issue in the UK, Peter Sellers wrote letters in support for him and stuck up for him, lent his help to getting the issue smoothed over, which it was. And I would just add that Herbert Lom was the greatest acting partner Peter had. He worked with bigger stars. He worked with many great actors, but he had no better acting partner as you see in these Pink Panther movies, than Herbert Lom. And
Yeah.
their scenes together are incredible each and every time.
And Herbert
Bill,
has
what are
such an
some of your favorites?
Well, a lot of them have been named, but I love Murder by Death for a later
Oh
role. I
yeah,
love
that's a really good one.
yeah.
too. Yeah, I forgot about that.
I love the Ealing comedies. And if we go to radio, I love the Goon Show.
Right.
But for Ealing, something like Carlton Brown of the Foreign Office or Greatest Show on Earth. There's Heavens Above that would be like one of the last. They're all worth seeing. He
Yeah,
did
we released those as
amazing
a
performances.
we released all the Ealing stuff also as a collection
Yeah,
about a year ago. So
Actually, the smallest show on earth. That's the
yeah.
title.
Thank you for
You're welcome.
correcting me.
Well, I think we have time for maybe one more question before we move on to audience questions. So
Sure.
since this is a show, a physical media appreciation show, I have to ask you guys, do you collect? And if you do, please tell me about your collections. I mean, do you have a special mantle for your Peter Sellers titles?
One. Yeah.
Just
I mean,
one.
I have several, but you should see Jason. Jason is a veritable museum.
yeah, I've seen some
Wow.
of the stuff that Jason has.
You'll have to
It's
send us
pretty cool.
photos so we can insert them into the episode.
Well, it's been helpful because some things still only exist on VHS. I mean, with YouTube, it's wonderful that somebody eventually thinks to find them and upload them. And over the years, some of the archival materials that have been unearthed by members of the Peter Sellers Appreciation Society are rescuing lost materials and restoring. And that starts with analog. But of course, we're now increasingly in a digital world. But I'm loath to get rid of some of these old VHSs because sometimes they haven't turned up anywhere else. It's great to preserve also because, for example, with the Pink Panthers, the jacket art, which there's some great variants in the Kino Lorber sets. But the jacket art with my swine earpiece, excuse me.
Uh-oh. Earpiece
The
down.
jacket, the jacket art. Yes, that is my ear. The jacket art had variants, and sometimes you couldn't find certain artwork, or the jacket art had variant photos that we couldn't find anywhere, scenes that were cut from the movies, or posed studio shots. I'm just going to leave it like this. So the physical media still pays dividends. Just the other day, I got a hold of a rare physical media copy of The Return of the Pink Panther, which showed a deleted scene, which I'd never seen, and that I've never seen anywhere else except on the back of this box from Asia of a VHS.
Nice.
But behind
Awesome.
us,
Well,
there's plenty of physical media, thank goodness, analog.
Yeah, I think I think I used to have the records and stuff, a lot of the soundtracks and stuff like that, because I
Yeah.
think the Strikes Again has that theme from Spectre Clouseau theme, which is beautiful. I think it's kind of sad music in a weird way, because as he's trying to get into the castle and keeps on falling out.
It's a lovely piece.
Yeah, it's a lovely piece by Mancini. But anyway, yeah. So there was a point where I had a lot more of stuff, but I don't collect as much as I used to. So
okay.
And then
Well,
there's all the
on that
tie-in
note,
toys. There's all the tie-in toys, plushies, figurines. That really requires a mantle. I have a whole shelf. I have more than one shelf, I think. We have
that's
some.
awesome. We have to see pictures of this.
Well, we wanted to say, in terms of physical media and collectibles and analog, we're going to be doing giveaways tied to the September 8th launch.
September 8th street date.
So-
Yeah.
so
we'll set something up on Twitter or Facebook.
Yeah, so keep looking.
Amazing.
Because we are going to be giving away this rare 1978 souvenir booklet from Japan, which you're looking at art that was done for the Pink Panther Strikes Again, including on the back, but the whole booklet, which I'm not going to open right now, but the whole booklet is a souvenir booklet of all the movies up to that point, with, to what I was saying earlier, pictures that you don't see anywhere else, and great stuff you have seen in terms of photos, but there's a lot of rare art and photos in there. So we're going to be giving away this special souvenir booklet that was issued in Japan in 1978, times to the release of Revenge of the Pink Panther, but commemorating all the movies in the Pink Panther Masterpiece Collection. And then we'll also be giving away a later second prize of Revenge of the Pink Panther mini poster, which is a petite reproduction of the original one sheet, which has one of the best taglines for the series. Sorry for the rustling. Oh, it doesn't have the
Wow.
tagline, but it's still the mini poster. It's still,
Very
this was still the
cool.
original poster. So that was the original US poster, and this is a reproduction mini. This was, the movie is from 1978. This reproduction is vintage itself. Don't think we just did it off the computer the other day. This is from 1981.
Very cool. Okay, well, everyone stay tuned for more information about that giveaway. We'll be sure to let everyone know. But on that note, I think we should move into audience questions. We have a lot of questions for both Jason and Bill, and of course for Frank as well. Well, the very first question, I think we should just confirm definitively. Darren asks, are you planning to release all of the Peter Sellers Pink Panther films in a single 4K collection box set?
Yes, we are. It's coming out. All 5 of them are coming out
You
in
heard it here first.
on his birthday. So on September 8th, 2026. So
But you can pre-order that now, starting now. So coming out September 8th, but you can pre-order it. Niall Arena is asking, what is everyone on the panel's deepest cut favorite Peter Sellers movie / role? So anything you haven't mentioned yet, like a deep cut, if you can think of one.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's hard to pick a favorite. It's hard to play favorites.
Yeah, I have a hard time with that. I mean, my favorite role of his will always be Clouseau, but I don't know.
We
It's so
mentioned
difficult.
before, I'll go with Carlton Brown of the FO, the Foreign Office.
What's his character's name in that? It's something funny.
It is, and I knew you'd do that to me. Then maybe I'll change. I'll say The Naked Truth.
Naked
Is
Truth.
one I
Well,
hadn't mentioned before.
well, wait a minute. I think I remember the Carlton Brown one. Does he play Amphibulos?
Amphibulous, yeah.
Amphibulos. So play on words there. In Naked Truth, his character's name is it Wee Sonny McGregor?
Yes.
Wee
Yeah,
Sonny
the
McGregor.
wonderful scene of him in the bar, but go ahead.
I mean, for me, being there really holds a special place in my heart, Alicia, because being there was his passion project, Peter's passion project that he developed for nearly a decade with Hal Ashby. He read the book at the beginning of the 1970s, and they finally got to film the movie in early 1979. It opened at Christmas 1979. At the time, to Frank's point earlier, Peter's career was such that he did not have the muscle to get Being There made. But he felt that Hal Ashby was the man to do it, and he said, we're going to do it together. And he would call Hal Ashby's office every day and say, don't worry, it's going to happen. We're going to do it. And once the Pink Panther sequels in the 1970s hit big, the studio said to him, yeah, anything you want, Peter. You want to do Being There? We'll do Being There. He said, not with Hal Ashby, we're not. He waited until Hal Ashby was available, because Hal Ashby by that point had become one of the premier directors in the 1970s with movies like Bound for Glory and Coming Home. And they waited for each other, and they fulfilled the promise, the commitment, and Peter made Being There. He had been preparing for it for years. It was his white whale, if you will. And to say that he nailed it kind of minimizes what he achieved with that. It's a remarkable performance that people take, a lot of actors take inspiration from that performance as much as they do from his Clouseau.
Yeah. I mean, if I had to pick something, I'm just going to pick the Wrong Box. I mean, that's cameo, small role, you know.
If any of you out there have never seen The Wrong Box, we keep mentioning it. If you're a cat lover, you need to see The Wrong Box. And no spoilers, but that's all I'm going to say.
Good to know. Okay. Next question is from Bill from Mount Holly, New Jersey. How do you feel? This one's for Frank. How do you feel about AI being used for film restoration in cases where deteriorated or destroyed nitrate frames need to be replaced?
As long as it's not noticeable, I'm okay with it. If it's something that really sticks out or something that, then this AI, eventually, I'm pretty sure that's what's going to be used to fix damaged frames and stuff like that, because I think AI could handle that pretty quickly, where if you have a damaged frame with a real deep cut in the middle of the frame, it's almost impossible to fix that without something like AI. I mean, you have to go to the previous frame and see if that's one of the, you got to find the same shot. So I think, yeah, so I'm okay with it as long as it's, I have more of a problem with using likeness of actors that are no longer with us in commercials and and whatever movies and things like that. But no, I'm okay with that. I think that's fine.
Okay. This one is for Jason and Bill from Brian M. Hello, Peter Sellers experts. I'm unfamiliar with the work of Peter Sellers, but I see from Google that he is in the Pink Panther collection. Here's my question. As a fan of film from 1988 to 2026, so, okay, can you tell me, in your opinion, what films in my time span did the Peter/Pink Panther collection inspire, affect, influence, impact, and shape? Thank you. Probably a lot, because that's also a wide time
It's
span.
borrowed from this. The Pink Panther movies have been borrowed from without credit a lot of times. I mean, you had movies that are completely forgotten now, like a John Candy vehicle from 1990 called Who's Harry Crumb, which was
really a funny movie.
Yeah, well, John Candy was a great actor, but that that could have been a franchise for him. I was lucky enough to work as a publicist on the first couple of Naked Gun movies, and I had the privilege of spending time with Leslie Nielsen on those. And I was sitting with him one day, and a wonderful, lovely man. And I said to him, I asked him about the comparisons between the Pink Panther and the Naked Gun movies, and he said to me, and I'm paraphrasing here, he said, our movies, meaning the Naked Gun movies, are cartoons. The Pink Panther movies are caricatures. Great caricatures, but they're caricatures. So he didn't mean it as a pejorative in either sense for cartoon or character, but he said that was the difference between them, acknowledging, and the Naked Gun was pretty much, Bill, maybe there's something I'm forgetting, but that was the only really successful bumbling cop series since the Pink Panther movies, wouldn't you say?
For feature films, sure.
Yeah, I
read
mean,
that go ahead,
yeah,
Frank.
go ahead, Alicia.
Well,
No,
I was
I'm just saying that
gonna say a lot of people were there's a delay,
Go
so
ahead.
we're like allowing each
Go
other,
ahead.
and that's
Go ahead.
But
go
no,
ahead.
just really quickly, a lot of contemporary comedians have cited Peter Sellers as influences, like Sacha Baron Cohen, Will Ferrell, Eddie Murphy, Rowan Atkinson, who's not as contemporary, but yeah, he's influenced a ton of.
Oh, there's no
Carrey.
doubt he's influenced. There's no
Carrey.
doubt a lot of people have been influenced, but it's also the type of films, right? I mean, I think who's Harry Crumb is like a great example of somebody trying to launch. And they were hoping that would be big enough hit that they could do a series of them.
Yeah.
And actually, it was funny enough for me. I thought it should have been a hit. It should have been a bigger hit than it was, but people just didn't. People didn't go see it. That's why it didn't do. But there's also movies that are kind of inspired by like the original Pink Panther, which is the kind of classic
Yes.
heist film, stuff like that, comedies that were done. So but yeah, as far as Peter Sellers is concerned, I'm pretty sure almost all major comedians have been inspired by him.
But really, the whole series of films, and if you look at the when you look at the Pink Panther Masterpiece Collection, all 5 movies, you see these sequences that have influenced other movies in different ways. The heist sequences in the Pink Panther, and especially the Return of the Pink Panther, have influenced movies ranging from the first Mission Impossible, the famous scene where Tom Cruise is suspended, to vehicles like Entrapment, which was a Sean Connery, Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Ocean movies.
The Oceans movies, which, yes, were a remake of a 1960 movies, but the Pink Panther series movies by Blake Edwards and Peter Sellers have tiptoed into the DNA of so many filmmakers and storytellers over the years. They're not even conscious of it, maybe.
Yeah.
And it's there in a lot of things. It's there when you see a movie trying to mix sophisticated humor and broad slapstick comedy. That was Blake Edwards' genius for being able to do the Venn diagram overlap where those two things met.
Yeah, and there's
Yeah.
movies like, I don't know if you remember a movie that was also John Candy. I think it was called Once Upon a Crime.
Exactly.
That film was very much in the tradition of the Pink Panther and all
Yeah.
that stuff, where, exotic locations,
Yes.
Giancarlo Giannini is kind of playing like a smarter Clouseau,
Yeah.
and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Absolutely true. Where
I would
credit
like to
is due.
see I would like to see Catherine Zeta-Jones slide across the floor with wax to dodge the lasers.
Well, it's been a while since I've seen that movie. She does a lot of catsuit action in that movie. But as far as the wax goes, to quote Return of the Pink Panther, wax is wax.
This is where you're wrong.
You got
Okay,
it.
and on that note, next question is for Frank from MP Sometimes is asking, what is the QC process like, and do you accept volunteers?
Why is he volunteering? QC
Sounds like
process is when we acquire a film, if we remaster it, we usually QC the master. So once the master is approved, then we usually send it out to the authoring house. The authoring house creates a check disc, which is seen by about 3 or 4 different people. One or two people are completely paying attention to the actual feature, make sure there's no glitches, there's no stuff like that, and the other people are, taking care of the extras and the subtitles and all of that stuff. And then there's once that's uploaded to the replication house, a test mold is created, which is the final disc that we're going to see. And then that gets also QC'd by 1 or 2 different people, including the replication house. And then it's sent for printing. So
Do you take internship applications?
no, we regularly hire interns, yeah. But usually the interns that work at the Kino Lorber are part of the theatrical department and part of the, if somebody wanted to intern in the home video division, we could always do that, yes.
Good to know. I think that would be a really fun job, and that's fascinating to learn about the process. This question is for Jason and Bill from Mark Zutkoff. Peter Sellers frequently played multiple characters in his films. I count at least 10 and possibly 12 on his IMDb page, and that doesn't count his disguises in the Pink Panther movies like we were talking about. This appears to date back to 1951, so it predates The Mouse That Roared and Dr. Strangelove. How did this come about? Was this his idea, or was he asked to do it?
Well, he started in radio. He started in radio with the iconic, legendary UK comedy series, The Goon Show, in which he and the other goons, Spike Milligan, Harry Secombe, Michael Bentine, would play different characters. The Goon Show was a precursor to Monty Python's Flying Circus and Saturday Night Live and all of these, SCTV, all these things. And it was very influential. People didn't imitate it so much as took inspiration from it. So he was always keen to be doing that. As I said earlier, from an early age, he just loved playing old men. One of his characters on the Goon Show was Henry Crun, who's this doddering old fellow. I can't really attempt the accent, but anyways, so Peter was determined to do that in movies as well. And the early movies that he did, they specifically had him doing character bits to kind of test run. But as I said earlier, it took The Lady Killers, where he's playing one character specifically. It's a comedic movie, but he's playing the character pretty straight, to make the humor funnier. That he really said, I've got to see if I can do this also.
Gotcha. This question is for Frank from Dan Maschiarelli. I'd love to see a special feature on one of your releases where we get to see film clips of the before and after a restoration, so we could see some of the raw 4K scan material compared with the final that goes onto the disc. Even video shot during the DI restoration session. Has something like that ever been thought about?
It's been done before by other labels. It's something that we used to do a long, long time ago, do a before and after and all that. It's not something that we do now, but I guess we could look into it. I mean, especially a film that takes a lot of work, because in most cases, the original camera negative is in pretty good shape. And yeah, the color grading is going to be done, but it's not that much off. But the ones, what we should do is we should probably do some trailers, because some of the trailers, the colors are so off, and then the amount of work it takes to fix, and it's a much easier thing. But yeah, I mean, that's something we could do. I don't think that would be too, too complicated. We just need to make sure that some of the stuff is recorded by the mastering house. Like, whilst they're working on it, they give us this different, steps. When we've released stuff in the past that was restored by others, sometimes they've included the restoration featurettes.
I think that would actually be fun even for social media. I think people would be interested in
yeah, but
seeing
the
stuff like that.
thing is, Alicia, that is like, once you've seen one, I think you kind of seen them, seen all.
I don't
Okay,
think so.
yeah,
I
because you've
think
seen a video,
especially
it
if you
shows
like a movie.
right. But I'm just saying, it's just deteriorated picture quality. Now it looks okay. Well, now it looks better, and now it looks perfect. So it's like you've seen the process before. I think
Speak
it's
for
yeah,
yourself, Frank. I want to see
yeah.
1,000 of these.
And the thing you just said, QC process, that could be fun. Yeah, try QCing something that is really miserable to watch, and then the disc has problems, and then you have to watch it a second time, and a third time, and a fourth time. I don't want to say. Well, I'm going to say it. I had to QC years ago Godard's Histoire de Cinéma, which I wanted to shoot myself after like the fourth time I watched it.
May he rest in peace.
That's all I can tell you. It's like the crazy audio things it has, and is this supposed to be subtitled or is this not supposed to be subtitled? And his voiceovers and all of that stuff. That was one of the most painful experiences of my life, because the first time I'm like, okay, I'll watch it, but then issue after issue after issue. So yeah, so that was one that I did years ago. That yeah, so be careful saying that it's a lot of fun. Yeah, it's
Be
fun when you're
careful what you
watching
wish for.
Shot in the Dark. I watched it 3-4 times in a row. I'm okay.
Seriously.
So one more question for Frank, and then one more for Jason and Bill, and then I think we'll have to wrap up. This question is from John. This is Peter Sellers related, sort of. Will you be releasing Blu-rays and or 4Ks of The Hospital with George C. Scott, Where Does It Hurt with Peter Sellers, Cactus in the Snow with Richard Thomas, Slaughterhouse-5 and the other with Uta Hagen? Would love to see these releases. I know we don't normally ask about specific releases, but since Peter Sellers is in here.
Yeah,
And
Peter
George C.
Sellers
Scott.
is in there for Where Does It Hurt, which I don't think was one of his finest hours. But by the way, if the other with Uta Hagen, that is one of the most unpleasant movies you will ever see.
Is that the Uta Hagen, like the acting methodology, Uta Hagen?
Yes, but
Okay.
it's not because of her that it's unpleasant. That's all I'm going to say.
From the stuff that I would say a couple of those if they're available to me, I would look into releasing The Hospital, and what was the last one? Slaughterhouse.
The Hospital,
Yeah.
Where Does It Hurt, Cactus in the Snow, Slaughterhouse-5, and the other.
Yeah, so Slaughterhouse-5 and The Hospital will be two that if they were available to me, we would remaster and release. So
The Hospital, didn't Paddy Chayefsky win his first Oscar for that?
that's a really good film. So
George C. Scott narrated.
I
Where Does It Hurt?
think the rights are with somebody else. So
They usually are. Where Does It Hurt was set in a hospital with Peter Sellers, but I don't know.
It may be Radamato's finest film.
It may be whose? The
Radamato's
director.
finest film. Yes.
Radamato, Amateau, Amato, right?
Yes.
I got it right? Okay, good.
Okay, well, we have one last question from Richard Martin. This is for Bill and Jason. Regarding the films of Peter Sellers, do either of you know the reason for the very limited screenings and lack of distribution of The Smallest Show on Earth, which I think you mentioned earlier? I was fortunate to catch it the last time TCM screened it about 10 years ago. I haven't seen it anywhere since, either under its original title or its US release title, Big Time Operators. There has been no Blu-ray release that I can find, and most DVD releases I see for sale appear to be bootlegs. Is there a rights dispute with this title? Thanks.
I'm a little surprised by this question, Richard. I'm sorry you've had such a tough time seeing it. I believe now a new DCP exists, the movie theatrically, because many of the Sellers 1950s black and white movies have been, if not restored, at least converted to DCP, and I believe that was one of them recently. I've been lucky enough to see it on screen at revival houses over the years. It's a wonderful picture in which he plays very old in it. And it's one of the overlooked great movies about movie theaters and loving movies and going to movie theaters. So I'm surprised that it's so hard to, but I don't know. Is that a title you did in the past?
No, we haven't. It's probably owned by the BFI or maybe Studio Canal. I'm not really sure.
Probably Studio Canal.
I don't know who owns it, really, to be honest. And also, a lot of the smaller films that he did in the UK, like this, they just don't have the reputation in the US. So even when you do release those, they don't sell as well as The Party or the Pink Panther
Well, yeah, I
films.
mean, with that ludicrous retitling Big Time Operators, which is just embarrassing. I mean,
Yeah, there's a lot of those in America. So.
no wonder it's confused people. It's like, I barely even heard of that retitling. I'm glad I hadn't.
Well, we only have 2 minutes left. We do have a hard out today, so I think that's a good place to wrap. So thank
Well,
you,
I do have
everybody.
I do have one quick statement from Peter, which is my Peter
Okay.
Sellers water bottle, which my dear friend Danielle gifted me with. I'm going to read Peter's statement, which I think says everything. It's a direct quote from Peter. Finally, in conclusion, let me just say this.
Yeah.
That's great. That's very, very Peter Sellers. Well, that's a wonderful note to end on. So thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you to those who submitted your questions. Thank you, Jason and Bill, for joining us today, chatting about Peter Sellers, about physical media, and much more. Thank you, Frank, for everything that you do to keep physical media alive. You can find some of the titles we discussed today, along with thousands of others, at kinolorber.com. The link is in the description below. While you're there, sign up for our newsletter if you haven't already, and be sure to follow us on social, and be sure to check out the Pink Panther box set. So thank you so much, everyone. We'll see you next month.
Thank you, Alicia. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Frank.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
for
you,
watching.
guys.
Bye.